Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Apologies for not getting any videos out lately. Just with Christmas and holidays, it's been a bit full on. Recently though, I've had a few subscribers join on, and with these subscribers there's been more comments on the videos. I was getting a few comments on how my graphics card performs, what the actual temperatures are and frame rates and such. I was commenting back and saying what I was getting, but I don't think it was completely accurate. So I took the time, installed some tools to actually monitor what results I was getting, and I was actually a bit surprised at what the actual results were. So in this video, I'm going to go into a bit more detail about the Asus 2080 RTX Turbo. In these settings, I'm always running at ultra-wide, so it's 3440 by 1440. In the next segments of the videos, I'll describe the actual graphic settings. So to start off, we're going to play some single player. This is going to be in DirectX 11, so no RTX. We're going to bump all the settings up to ultra, so I just need to change this one and this one. Okay, so all settings are in ultra. The resolution is 3440 by 1440, and it's DX11, so no RTX on. And as you can see, it looks really good. The frame rates are pretty much sitting around 65 to 70. Temperature is 80, and it gets to about 83 degrees Celsius. So it runs well, no complaints here. It feels really smooth and looks really good. So this is how I've normally been playing all my games, well, at least Battlefield 5 in multiplayer. I haven't really played much single player, but jumping forward a little bit just to show some action scenes. So again, still playing single player here, but a bit more combat. Still the frame rates are around the 65 to 70, sometimes low 60s. Temperature's still around the 80 to 83. I haven't really seen it any higher than that. So it's definitely really playable. Switching over to multiplayer. Still we're in DirectX 11, so RTX is off. Again, we're getting the usual 70 frames. Temperatures sort of 80s, and it's pretty much stable. Like, this is how I play multiplayer. I find it the most comfortable. The frame rate's good, and I don't get any stuttering or lag or anything like that. So this is my preferred method of playing Battlefield 5. So now on to the fun stuff. We had to restart the game, start it into DirectX 12, so then we can activate RTX mode. So you can see here DirectX 12 and DXR is enabled. We're going to change the DXR to medium. From what I've heard online, it's pretty much the best setting to go with. Jumping back into single player. So remember, we have DXR on, or RTX mode on, 3440 by 1440. All settings on ultra except for the RTX, which is on medium. You can see that surprisingly the frame rate is pretty much the same. We're getting around 70 FPS. Temperatures are still the same. It's around the 80 mark. It feels pretty good to play. But you can see that when there is a frame rate drop, it does take quite a hit. In some cases, it's dropping down to 60, 58, 57. So there's definitely a bit of a hit in certain areas with RTX on. And I think this is where it's most noticeable. Because I'm so familiar with those higher frame rates, as soon as you're getting under 60, I really do feel that reduction in frame rate, especially when I'm trying to aim down sights or something. It just feels a bit less smooth, and therefore that affects my aiming and such. When you're playing single player, I don't think it matters too much because the AI in this game is pretty terrible anyway. But once we go to multiplayer, I think that's where I just can't use RTX. Another thing about RTX is that for the sacrifice you're making in this drop in performance, there really isn't much gain in visual quality. This probably isn't the best map to show RTX because RTX is all about reflections in water and on glass. And in this map, you really don't have much of those reflections going on. I might have to do another video where if I can find a particular map that shows a lot of reflections to see if that's where we really get that performance hit and see how playable it is, especially in single player where it doesn't matter too much. But in this map, I mean, I can't really see, oh, there's a little bit there. But I mean, it's so quick that you just really don't get much gain out of it. I hope in the future that RTX comes along further, and obviously it will, where developers begin to see what they can do with the technology. But at this stage, it's still as pretty much a tech demo, if anything, and I think it should be treated as such. Now let's switch over to some multiplayer gameplay, and I'll show this is where I really would not use RTX at all. Okay, we're into a multiplayer match now, and straight away you see that little bit of a stutter at the start there. I can already feel the performance hit. Now it might not look like much because you can see on the screen it's getting 55 frames. It's only 5 FPS hit. When you're so familiar with 60 FPS or higher, as soon as you get that hit under 60, you can really feel it in your aiming. You can see here I'm just playing awfully. I can't aim, partly because I'm trying to record footage at the same time. I'm not concentrating, but just the time where it takes me to really aim at an opponent and get accurate with them, I'm always overshooting or going over the edge. It's especially noticeable in this area where there's a lot of grass around. The frame rate really drops down, like you're getting 30s there. So in a multiplayer setting, in a competitive setting, it's just not worth it. At least at this resolution. I think maybe in 1080 you're going to get much better frame rates. Anything higher than that, I mean, what's the point? You get some pretty reflections that you don't notice at the cost of bad gameplay. RTX mode in a competitive setting isn't there yet. The trade-off that you have to put up with is going to really affect your gameplay, and therefore it's not worth using. I did some further testing with this card as well, because apparently the high temperature for this card, according to Asus, is 89 degrees Celsius. And I was getting a bit concerned with how hot the card was getting. The hottest it would get would be pretty much 83 degrees. It doesn't leave me much room to hit that threshold though. So looking into the Asus software, which is the GPU Tweak 2, I noticed that I couldn't control the fan curve with this card. I could manually set the fan speed, but I couldn't create a curve, which I think is really annoying. I don't know if that's a software issue or if it's an issue with the card itself, but it means that the cooling is kind of set there. So I played around with it. I'm like, okay, what happens if I bump up the fan speed? I manually set it. So I put it to about 50%. It seems by default it's usually around 30, and it's quite quiet. Pretty much the case fans in the system are louder than the GPU itself. As soon as I bumped it up to 50% though, the sound on that card just took off. It sounded like my PS4 Pro, and those things, sound like a jet. It's definitely louder than my system by that stage, and quite irritating. Anything higher than 50% really became quite noticeable, like really, really loud. The temperatures though definitely did drop. I did a bit of testing with the fan speed. So by default, I think it must be set to like 30% fan speed. This is usually around 83 degrees at the most. I would put that to about 40% fan speed or 50%. And it'll definitely start dropping in the temperature. It would get around 75 degrees. As I started ramping up and manually setting that fan speed, 60%, 70%, I could get the temperature down to low 60s. So the potential for cooling in the card is there, but the issues are that, one, the fan curve wouldn't work for me, so I couldn't just set and forget, and it could control itself and keep itself cool. And secondly, that anything more than 45, 50% was just ridiculously loud. So I found I just had to create a profile with a manual fan speed of around 45%, which it made the card a little bit loud, but it was bearable. And it did get my temperatures down to that 75, low 70s. I felt that was a good middle ground where it wasn't too loud. I gave myself enough headroom for the temperatures, wasn't creeping into the high 80s, and I was pretty happy with that. But it's annoying that I have to go into GPU tweak every time, set a profile, load up a game. It would be much better if it just pick up on a fan curve and adjust itself as needed. So if anyone knows how to fix that, please speak up, because I'd love to just be able to use a fan curve and set and forget, not have to worry about it. Coming to the end of this video, I just wanted to add a little bit of extra footage. So what I've got here is an older game, not too old, Shadow of War. This doesn't have RTX mode, but I wanted to play around with just what ultra settings does to give you an idea of what another game is like at ultra wide resolution in ultra settings and how this card performs. And you can see it handles it really easily, getting way over 100 FPS. The temperatures are quite cool. I believe this is because I set my fan manually by this stage. So we're getting, low 65, which is much better than the 80 degrees we were getting before. And it runs really well. But this is an older game, so it's not the best example, apart from just what an ultra-wide game would be like on the 2080 Turbo. So thanks for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it answered some of the questions that people were asking in the comments. And if you have any more suggestions on what you'd like me to cover, just post in the comments. I'll have a read every couple of days and I'll try and do something for you. So I guess I'll be seeing you guys in the next video.